All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to our Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having an okay day. My heart's a little heavy with the news here in America of this, mass shooting that happened today, and it's not great. But we'll hopefully have some good times talking about cars here, and try to be more positive. But like all the other usual live streams, I'll be going for 1 hour here for these midweek ones. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat and a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green names. They always get that priority answering. And Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. I see Hyper Shadow, Still Buster, Kraken, and Lanswath, Brian, and Wheatman and Vishal and Theodore, Chadwick, Decepticon. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. Let me see. Hyper Shadow says, I'm at work doing my sales jobby thing and decided to just drop the first comment in here, even though I won't be on the stream probably. Well, thanks for stopping by anyway, and hope the jobby thing goes well. And Syllabuster says, hey, Matt, love the name of your new channel. Car spots of the week are 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines. On top of that, 3 T66 turbos with NOS, Motec exhaust system. Okay, love that scene. I appreciate the laugh. Thank you. That's I need to go back and rewatch all the Fast and Furious movies. Actually, I've had a hankering to watch those recently. It's been far too long for me. And I'm glad you like the name of the new channel as well. I'm excited for it. We'll see how it goes. I'm just waiting on approval from Pull Apart. They have to review the video before it goes live, and then that video will be going live on the new channel. And I'm excited to try it out. We'll see, how it goes, but it was a lot of fun. There's always so many surprises at the junkyard, and it's just exciting. It's like fun treasure hunting, and it's also like the like horror show of, the crazy bizarre mods and crazy accident stuff and just all kinds of interesting things you see on the yard. And so hopefully it goes well. We'll see. Kraken, thanks for stopping by. He says, got some news as usual. Outback needed pads and rotors. Got that installed and drove home next day, and my right front was smoking bad. Turns out the uneven pads were a sign of a stuck caliper. Man, drove Kraken to work for the first time in I don't know how long. Forgot how rapid it puts on speed, but I do miss rowing through the gears. I hate that I love both my cars equally. Well, that's good. You love them both. And yeah, that's crazy that you got pads and rotors installed, but they didn't realize there was a stuck caliper. It seems interesting that they wouldn't have caught that. Maybe it's something that's kind of hard to catch, but I don't know. I don't know enough about changing brakes. I've only done it once with help a long time ago, back on the Legacy, actually. So, but yeah, glad everything worked out. Hopefully they'll be fixing the caliper there, or at least comping the pads if that got all screwed up as a result of the stuck caliper. That's crazy. But I'm glad you got to enjoy the Kraken a little bit more than usual there on the commute. And Still Buster says, my real spots were a red Citroen's 2CV and a blue 240SX, but it was nowhere near as nice as Saab Kyle's 240SX. His is straight up sex on wheels. His is very nicely done. It's been fun seeing him tinkering on all the cars he's got there in the shop, including, some of his own. And Lancelot says, good evening, everyone. My spots so far this week are a white Audi TT, white Dodge Magnum, and a red and white Subaru Brat. Nice. Wow, that's, a rare spot to see a Brat, especially. That's cool. And thanks for stopping by, man. And Kraken says, I agree. Saab Kyle's 240SX is tits. Sorry, I don't want to say the word, but it's my word for it. Exactly. Nice. Yeah, it is very nice. And I see the confusion there about using the word. Let me see. And good evening to you as well, Wheatman. And Vishal says, good evening, all. My only spot so far was a mint-condition first-gen Sienna XLE. Haven't been driving as much the past week as we've been working from home. Nice. So that's always great. I love working from home most of the time. It's a very nice luxury to have. I don't think I had any spots here in the past few days that I can think of. But yeah, It's crazy. I saw, yeah, Theodore. That's what I was going to mention. He says the GTR goodbye. So very sad. Why is everything leaving? Almost want to cry. Yeah, they made the last GTR. It sounds like yesterday. And yeah, it's end of an era. But I mean, it lasted a long time. You know, that's like the good thing about it is it lasted 8 years basically. I think they said, or sorry, 18 years. Because 2008 was when they debuted, I believe, right? And the 2009 model year, and then now here we are making 2025. So that's longer than most cars get, and so that's it's one of those things. Be happy it happened. Don't be sad that it's ending. I know it is sad. I'm sad too, but I'm just grateful. It's made the history that it's made, and it's such a fantastic car. I still hope someday that I can find an excuse to get a GTR, but they seem like they're just not depreciating anymore. They were having a nice downward trend there for a while, several years ago, and then I don't know when it was, around maybe 2020 or so, they just stopped and just haven't gone down anymore since, regardless of how rough they are. They just I don't think I've seen any really below 50 still. I mean, I'm happy for the owners that bought them. They're excellent investments, but man, yeah, it's a special car though, for sure. I still, every time I've ever driven one, it's always been a special experience. And Antonio, thanks for being a member for 25 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, Matt, are you choosing an NA V8 Miata or a boosted S2000? Between those two, I don't know. I don't honestly love either of those choices. They're both very fun cars, but neither of them is a car that I would personally want to own. I think S2000s are perfect the way they are. And I love the high revving NA motor in that. And NA V8 Miata is really fun too, but I think Miata is also better with just ND2 motor in it. I think that motor is perfection for that car. It's for me, it's all the fun I need to have on the street from a speed standpoint. And I mean, I'm one of the few who has reviewed a NA V8 Miata. It's fantastically wild and crazy and fun, but not something I pursued one either to live with. I see he says for free. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess whichever one's worth more, and then I'd sell it and buy something I actually wanted. It depends on if the S2000 is supercharged. I rode in a supercharged S2000 a while ago. Supercharged, they seem like it's a little bit more close to the original S2000 formula. Turbo is kind of transform it a little bit more, I think. So if we're talking like a lightly supercharged S2000, like the closest I can get to a non-boosted S2000, that would probably be the way I would go. But sorry, I'm no fun. But one car though, speaking of NA V8s and all that, I actually saw a Shelby GT350. That could be my spot here. I saw one of those earlier today, and I think someone in the last live stream asked if I, were given the option, would I rather have like Bullet or would I rather have GT500? And I said I'd rather have Bullet because I think about 500 horsepower is the sweet spot for this street. Anything more than that, and it's just kind of hard to use fully. But if I were to go back to another Mustang, and I've said in the past, if I can't have my actual Bullet back, I'm not sure if I even want another Bullet because it wouldn't be the same. So, I think that when I saw that GT350 today, I was like, I really always did love the GT350. Now, I always contended the Bullet was better, but if I, for my uses and what I wanted, I loved the color, I loved, the vibe and, the Bullet theme of it all. But if I wanted to go in a different Mustang direction, GT350 absolutely is, to me, the pinnacle. I'd rather have it over a GT500. Even if they were the same price. It's just fantastic manual, best manual of any Mustang, really. I mean, it later trickled down, into the Mach 1 and stuff, but just, pure magical engine. But that's another motor where you have to wring it out, but you don't have a ton of power down low. So you do have to play with the power a little bit there before it gets to crazy speeds. I'd probably do a GT350 and then I would do shorter gearing in it. So I'd probably put a shorter final drive in so you can actually, so I think second tops out at like 80 in a GT350. So I'd want to lower that so I could actually, use the engine more. But I mean, I don't know if I'll ever have money to get a GT350 or anything else. I may also just, if I ever were to get something again, go GR Corolla or something. But if someone, I think that's my answer from now on. If someone asks, what would be your next Mustang move if I were to do one, it would probably be a GT350 is kind of what I'm thinking at this point. But again, I don't think it's going to ever happen probably. But just one little thing that I was thinking back on the last live and all that. But let me see here. And thanks again, Antonio, for being a member and for the fun question. Let me see. Chadwick, thanks for stopping by, Decepticon. And Vishal says, did you see that Volkswagen could be making a Golf R using the RS3 engine? I hadn't heard that. That would be amazing. I'm not entirely convinced that Audi would let them do it. And if they did happen to do it, that smells like a Oktoberfest, whatever that fall Volkswagen festival is they do in Germany. I can't remember what it's called. But I could see that being like something for that, like a concept thing or something. And then even then, if they were to put something like that into production, which is a real big leap of faith, if they were to do that, I would be highly suspecting that would be a Germany only product, or at least Europe only, because they often hold all the best stuff back for themselves. And I don't blame them, I suppose. But so I haven't heard that report. That's a fun idea. Obviously, it would be amazing if they did that. And I think the RS3 motor now does have a little bit more life to live, because that's one that was kind of, talked about possibly being on the chopping block. And I think they had kind of committed to sticking with it even before, all the EPA being dissolved and everything. But, I think that obviously is going to work in their favor. We may have a few more years of that motor before it does eventually go away as well. So maybe in these last days of that motor, they're saying, sure, let's just go nuts with it. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I have to look into that. Thanks for the heads up on that. I'll have to, like I said, check it out. And Miniac, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing well. And Chadwick says, just a small update. I learned how to drive a manual much easier than I ever could have imagined, but I passed on the Elantra N and am hunting for a Civic Type R instead. Nice. Well, Civic Type R certainly has a better manual experience, and it's a higher performing car in basically every way. And so, yeah, if you can get one of those instead, I don't blame you one bit. They're fantastic. I don't know if the aftermarket exhausts have gotten any better as far as the options, but I haven't heard a good aftermarket exhaust on a Type R. Maybe I'm just not around enough of them to get a good gauge of that. But that's the one thing I think the Elantra still has the edge on, is the sound component. But everything else, I think Type R is definitely better. So best of luck on the hunt, and hope you can find one you like soon. And Scott says, I know you don't dive too heavily into the truck world, but any opinion on the Ram, Chevy, and Ford 3/4 ton gas trucks, the new models? So your 3/4 ton, is that like the heavy duty stuff? I'm guessing is what you're talking about. Because half ton is regular full size, right? Yeah, I mean, I did do the new Cummins Ram. I did a review on that earlier this year. So you can check out that video for my thoughts on that. It's, the really top-notch Ram interior, a ton of power, obviously. And it's, a very nice truck for, people who want or need that. I actually will be reviewing the, revised F250 here later in October, maybe early November, something like that. Just because actually the one I did back in 2020 has done surprisingly well views wise. And, that's one of those vehicles, I don't want to drive it. I hate driving all that stuff. But, that's one that will do better. It should do pretty well for views. The Cummins that I did earlier this year, that's getting pretty decent views. And again, approaching this as a business instead of just doing the stuff I want to do. I'm going to be doing the F250. I mean, I'm sure it's a very impressive truck. It's just, the polar opposite of my personality. And as far as the Chevy one, haven't tried those. I've never actually driven a HD Chevy, I don't think, honestly. So not qualified to weigh in on that whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, they're all doing top-notch stuff and competing, always outdoing each other and all that. So yeah, I don't have any opinion on that one though, unfortunately. But the Ford ones are always typically very well done, as is the Ram. And if you have any other follow-up questions or any specifics about them, like I said, the reviews are probably the best, way to get those answers. But happy to also chat more about that if you have any follow-up questions. And Vishal says, "But good for you, Chad, about learning to drive the manual." And he says, Vishal wants to learn as well. Just need to make time for it. I hear that, yeah. But it's a fun idea. Even if you can find some $500 beater, you can learn on that, so you don't feel bad about ruining a nicer car. Or there's all kinds of ways you can learn. Some rental places, maybe you can still track down a manual, maybe not. I know in Europe you could. So if you ever plan on going overseas, you can rent a manual car that way and try it out on a little Volkswagen Polo or something like that. Yeah, it's definitely something. It's really not that hard, especially with modern manuals. They're easier to drive than ever before. And it is really something that you shouldn't be too intimidated about, especially if you know the process, what you need to do mentally. It's just a matter of, again, feeling it out, and you're on your way. It's not bad. And Dylan says, thoughts on a used GV70, 30,000 miles for 40 grand. I haven't looked at pricing recently on used ones, so I don't know whether that's a good deal or not. What I can say, though, is that GV70s are still probably one of my favorites in the segment, and depending on what you're looking for, in many cases, I think it is the best in the segment. Now, it's not the best as far as space goes, but in most of the other ways, I love it. And actually, I have the 2026 GV70 right now that I'll be posting the review of here tomorrow. I love it. It's still so nice. And I mean, there's some other new stuff that's come out in the past couple of years that's very impressive as well. Like Lincoln Nautilus, for example, I'm really impressed with. Lexus RX is very good. There are some others. I still think Acura RDX is really, really well done if you can stomach not having a touchscreen. But I think GV70 kind of is the best looking one, in my opinion. It's the great thing, too, if you're shopping used ones, is if you find a certified pre-owned one, you might pay a little bit more money for that, but that gives you that full 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty still, versus if you buy a used one and it's not a certified, that drops for the second owner to 5 years, 60. I'm sure you're probably already aware of that, but in case you aren't, just know that about the warranty. It does change for the second owner if you don't get certified. So I would certainly get a certified one. And then it's the best, I think, buy used, because you have that longer coverage. And especially with the European stuff, you're going to get burned eventually on maintenance if you keep it a long time. If you're going to flip it in a few years, you might be okay. But the GV70 is one of the few that I would feel comfortable buying and holding a long time. That along with all the other import ones, the Lexus, the Acura, but I couldn't say the same for a comparable Mercedes, Audi, BMW, Volvo, things like that. I would not keep beyond, a 5-year-old one. I think anything beyond 5 years, you're really rolling the dice. So I think GV70 is great. If you would like me to check out any listings, after the stream, send me a link or something like that. I'm more than happy to, check into that. I also do the one-on-one car consulting on mattmaranmotoring.com there if you want to do a call, and I can, chat with you more in particular about, exactly what you're looking for and all that. I can help, if I can give you some of my advice on, what might be the best fit for you based on everything I've, driven out there. But best of luck in the hunt if you do decide to go for it, Dylan. And Kraken says, I fix my own cars. I said the same thing about that dealer. I got a remanufactured caliper from AutoZone, and a friend is going to help me swap it out on Saturday. Well, best of luck with the swap. Yeah. I think if I had more time, I would certainly, especially, these days, none of the cars we have ever require any maintenance. But, back with like the Bullet and stuff, I was so paranoid even with oil changes. They wouldn't tighten the drain plug enough and things. And, thankfully I had my buddy do the oil changes for a while, but the last couple, he wasn't a mechanic anymore, and I had to take it to the dealer. And I'm like, I'm the type that I also would probably want to do my own maintenance, just so I know that it's, been certified and checked out, at least as far as the things I can handle. Brakes are one of those things you definitely don't want to get wrong because it can go bad real quick. And Jack, thanks for stopping by, and Danny as well. And J Dub says, would it be worth getting the Lobo over a regular style Maverick, or go for the Lobo? It entirely depends on what you're looking for out of the vehicle. If you will appreciate the better handling that you'll be getting with the rear diff from the Focus RS, that's one of the key things there for Lobo. And what is it? You also get paddle shifters, obviously the different suspension tune. So it really comes down to how much are you planning on flinging it around corners. If you live in a place where it's mostly straight roads, and you don't really have a whole lot of corners around you, then you're probably gonna, it'll look cool, but it probably won't be something you're going to appreciate as much as if you're on, the West Coast or the East Coast or something where you have, some great windy roads. Then, Lobo would be probably more fun if you appreciate that. But, since there's no actual power gains or anything, it really just comes down to the handling component is really that and the look, So if those two things are worth whatever the upcharge is for Lobo, then that can make it worthwhile. But, yeah, I just would say the only other thing is there may be more markups on Lobo than regular Maverick. So just be wary of that. Make sure that you are shopping around at multiple dealers. Get out of your normal, search radius if you need to make sure you don't pay a markup or go, for because even there's a lot of discounts these days. So, even sticker probably would be too high to ask for a Lobo, I would assume. So just make sure you're getting a good deal, because I feel like they may try and mark those up more than a regular Maverick. But other than that, Lobo seems great. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to review it yet. Haven't had any opportunities, so I can't say how it feels. I did the regular Maverick, that was great. And you can watch my review on the regular Maverick with the hybrid. It's not the turbo one, but I did a turbo one a few years ago. It's the same thing mechanically. So yeah, check those out if you want to hear all my thoughts on the Maverick. And Antonio says, have you seen the Kia that was in a car accident and the airbags didn't deploy? I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen the one you're referring to in particular. I have. Someone actually sent me another thing in the past few months about a car or I saw something online where a car didn't have the airbags blow, and it was like, how could this possibly be? There was a Mach-E that people were kind of wondering if there was something wrong because it looked like a pretty hard hit and the airbags didn't blow. And the answer I always have for any kind of those crash questions is that there is very sophisticated sensors that need to be, beyond a certain threshold for that stuff to actually trigger. And they do a lot of work on figuring out exactly where that threshold is, on when is it beneficial to deploy the airbags and when could it actually not be beneficial. There's a variety of things. Even like certain cars, don't have the airbags blow if, like, the seatbelt isn't buckled. So they're assuming someone's not in that seat. And sometimes companies will do that, but then other companies will actually just, no matter what, every time one seat gets triggered as far as needing airbags, the entire car just blows up with airbags just to be on the safe side. And so because there are some instances where having all of them inflated, even if there aren't people in those seats, could actually be beneficial too. But typically, it's one of those things where it may look like that should have blown and it didn't. And then there's other times where you see airbags blow and it seems like the most mild thing, that it should have just, not bothered blowing. But, typically that's something that is, again, it's deliberately done that way for very good reasons, safety reasons. And there's all kinds of things. I think if your seat is too close to the steering wheel, like if you're, some of these people that are like really short or just like hugging the steering wheel, I think if the seat position is in a certain place, this is why these airbags have, various levels of deployment. If it's too close, if the decision for the car is it's going to blow this airbag and it's going to really hurt the person because they're like sitting on an explosive essentially, then the lesser of the two evils is don't blow the bag and have them take the hit because they're so close to the steering wheel anyway, versus having airbag potentially doing more harm than good. So there's all kinds of, again, sophisticated things. There's a lot of sensors in the seats. There's a lot of G-force sensors that it might look like a hard hit, but maybe the way the G-forces hit, it didn't really impact the driver to the point of needing the airbags. There's all those kinds of things that kind of go into it. I kind of hesitate to make judgments or say, oh no, this car is screwed up. I mean, there are certain instances where we have seen in the past airbags that, were faulty or defective. I know Lexus just had the one recall a year or two ago on TX. I think it was last year on TX. They kind of halted sales right whenever they were starting to get hot because side current airbags weren't deploying properly on TX, and they caught that very early and they, fixed that. So, I mean, maybe this Kia is another example of, an undiscovered issue that will then trigger a recall. But that's pretty rare. Most of the time, they do a lot of, validation to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen, because that's the difference between, a very hefty, lawsuit and not having that, so, and obviously they don't want to hurt people either. So there's that component, but, yeah, I'll have to look into that as well, Antonio. And Danny says, hello, I have my first high school football game tomorrow. Rare spots were a 4th gen Nissan Pathfinder hybrid, a 9th gen Accord hybrid, and an 85 Mazda 929. Man, you are really lucky at spotting some cool stuff. And honestly, I can say I didn't even know there was such a thing as a Pathfinder hybrid. So thanks for the education there on that. And I hope the first high school football game of the year is a great one, and hope you enjoy it. And Kraken says, I just found my spot of the week, a Nissan Murano Cross Cabriolet on 37s. Oh man, that's pretty crazy, especially those are actually rare, those Cross Cabriolets, so that's quite the find. And let me see here. He says he found it on Marketplace. Gotcha. That's impressive that someone's also selling one, because I feel like those don't probably pop up on Marketplace too much. And Danny says the Bolt's at 75, 930, and it's inching closer and closer to 76. Yeah, I'm excited to see when you guys hit 100,000 at some point here. And Miniac says, what car I'm going to suggest, Matt, as far as next car, maybe for me, it would be a Mini, I guess. I do love Minis, but, I love the Fiat. I think if I wanted something like a Mini, I really think the Fiat is doing, I know you're going to hate this, Miniac, but I think Fiat's doing Mini better than Mini is right now. I think Mini has gone too sporty, too quirky. It's always been quirky, but I mean, when I was in the new Cooper S, it's just, to me, a bridge too far. I like the familiarity of regular gauge cluster, of having a more user-friendly infotainment system, and just a simpler car with the 500e, and it's also cheaper. I think that's kind of the spirit of the original Mini and 500, of something fairly simple, does the basics, and it doesn't have a whole lot of weird stuff or frills in it, and I think there's just really no basic Mini anymore, because I think they all have the head-up display, right? And that's it. It's just, there's just some weird stuff there that I'm just not in love with. And let me see here. Where were we here? So Black Death says, have you ever thought about buying the 2024 Mustang Dark Horse? That would be cool. I don't like the S650s still. The interior completely kills it for me. Exterior is fine, but to me, the S550 is a better value, and so I have zero interest in a S650. I don't think I'll ever be interested in them. Even if they did a bullet version, it just wouldn't be as good as the S550s. So there's no saving it for the S650 for me. For a lot of people, it's fine if you want, the giant screens and you don't care about all the heritage that was lost on the interior and everything, and that's fine. But it's a good performance car. I'm sure, no doubt about it. It's going to be basically Mach 1 with 20 more horsepower. But I'm a lover of the S550 to the end here. It's like one of those things, like the people who like pick their decade and then stick with it as far as their clothes and their hair and stuff. For me, it's like Mustang, like S550 will always be my generation of Mustang. And like, I'm never shifting off of that. It's, I'm never going to evolve or adapt. But Raphael saying hello. Thanks for stopping by, Raphael. And YH, thanks so much for a super chat. He says, I was going to spend about 12 to 15 grand on upgrading my GT, but I was thinking saving that money and just get the dark horse next summer. What do you think? It depends on what your goals are. I think I don't think dark horse is going to move the needle enough for you based on, the mods you already have on your GT. It's going to be a dark horse would be slower than I'm assuming what, the stuff you've already done to your GT. And it's not like the dark horse is much of a better base. I think you said yours is an automatic, right? So, there's no benefit there either. At least if you're manual versus manual, you get the better manual in the dark horse. But if you're automatics, then there's no improvement between regular and dark horse there either. So if you're, especially with how much you love speed, Etch, what I would tell you to do, if you have 12 to 15 grand, I would try and grow that money over the next year and then put that towards a GT500, because the new GT500 does seem like it's coming fairly soon. There was just spied, I think Ford Authority spied one running around with basically complete bodywork. Obviously had the bags on it and stuff, so you still couldn't see a lot of the details, but definitely sounds like it's got the 5.2 supercharged motor in it, and still seems like it's dual clutch. So that's going to be an upgrade. Or if you're worried about that being 100 grand or something, because it probably will be, you can always go again S550. I know you're already in the S650s here, but if you are willing to downgrade to S550, I'm just a firm believer in OEM quality for especially high performance and high horsepower stuff, because you want it to be well rounded and all that as well. So for me, if I want a high horsepower Mustang, like I just say get a GT500. And if that's unattainable, then you can do a supercharger on the GT or whatever. But I think I don't know. Yeah, between what your GT's worth and then add another 15 on top of it, I guess that's not going to get you to. It's not that far from GT500, at least here in America. Maybe Canada, there's a way bigger price delta or something. But it's just you can't beat Ford performance engineered OEM from the factory. They have the Ford Performance Supercharger too, but that tune and all that is still it's not going to be as polished as what GT500 offers. So that's for you. I think that's the next step. If I were in your shoes and I had the goals that it sounds like you have of smoking everything on the street, I would probably just have your eye on a GT500. And honestly, even if you want high horsepower, if you don't care about the well-rounded thing, you could probably almost certainly get an SN9 or a S197 GT500. Those ones, that's the last one Carroll Shelby worked on. Those can hit 200 miles per hour thanks to the gearing. Please don't do that, Etch. But that's still a crazy awesome car. Responds very well to mods too, and probably would again fall in that territory if the S550s or the S650 won't. And I see some follow-ups here. He says, yeah, he's got the 10-speed. The goals are smoke all Hellcats. Yeah, the S650 is sexy. Interior is whack, though. Shelby has fallen off. Yeah, well, that's also, there's been rumors that whatever this new GT500 is going to be called, it might not be called Shelby. That's possible, too. But it's bottom line, it's going to be a GT500 with, the S650 body panels and interior is basically what I think they're doing there. And that's all they need to do is phone it in again, because that's, going to be enough, especially these days. People don't want change. People don't want any improvements. They just want the old thing. So I think Ford's going to give them the old thing, and that's great for that demographic. So I think that's probably the way it's going to go. He says, fine, I'll wait. You don't have to wait. You get S550s right there. You can pick up a GT500 right now. Or again, like I said, S197 and get yourself into a faster car today if you want. But I see why says he wishes they made the GT350 in a 10-speed. It would have been perfect. But GT350 would have felt slower. That's the thing about GT350 is that it actually has, if you look at the torque curve, it's, I think, I think peak torque even is about the same as a regular GT, and the way the torque curve is, and also with the tall gears, it actually feels slower than a GT, especially if you're talking an S550 pre 2018 before the gearing got taller. If you're talking 15 to 17 GT, especially one with like 355 gears or 373s, those are going to feel way quicker off the line than a GT350. So GT350 sounds amazing, and maybe you can put a supercharger on it yourself or something. But I think for you, if straight line speed is your number one goal, it's GT500 or nothing. Would be my vote for you. Or again, throwing a supercharger on is fun too, but just you might have a little bit more of an issue with that as far as reliability and stuff. And thank you again for the super chat. And let me see. So where were we here? Kevin, thanks for stopping by. And I see Golf R 2.5 is what someone else is mentioning here. Yeah, we'll see what they do with Golf R. I'm curious where they end up taking that. I mean, they can just give more power out of the regular current motor. I think it'll be completely fine. And Zachary says, did I miss a channel announcement? Yeah, it was yesterday. There was just a member post, or not a member post, just a regular social, what do they call them? The posts on the channel. And that's where I announced the new channel. I didn't do a video. And I'm just keeping it as just the post, just because the algorithm is so finicky these days that doing like an announcement video that confuses the algorithm, because then it's like, oh wait, this is like a personal update. These people are car shoppers or car enthusiasts, and it used to be you could post those kinds of videos that wouldn't hurt the channel, but it now seems like the algorithm is so sensitive that it's safer to just do that as a regular post. So that's what I just did for that. And the first video isn't live yet. I'm waiting on Pull Apart to approve it, but it's edited and uploaded and ready to go on the channel, which, yeah, it's called Relics of the Rust Belt. So definitely check that out. But yeah, I did not post an actual video or anything yet. And let me see. So Danny says, I drove alone on Monday, and today, no idiots on the road of New Jersey. Very scary, because there's always an idiot driver in New Jersey. Well, just give it time. And William says, hi, Matt. Looking forward to your new junkyard channel as well, and seeing what cars you come across. Thanks, William. I'm glad you're looking forward to it. I'm excited for it. I think it'll be fun. And Brian says, my spot this week was a pink GR86. That's quite the spot. Never seen a pink one, I don't think. Maybe it's SEMA or something, but never out in the wild. That's cool. Let me see. And Suja says, after watching your latest Miata video a handful of times, I picked one up last week. Thank you for an awesome vid and helping me decide. Well, I'm so happy the video helped you, and congrats on getting a Miata. And thank you for getting a Miata, supporting the Miata cause. It's I'm sure you're loving it, and yeah, it's a fantastic car. And that's another car, speaking of other cars to own one day. I mean, I'd probably go for like ND2 Miata before I'd go GT350 as well, because Miata is just, again, all you need for the streets. And I desperately want a convertible someday. And so I'm not sure if you've had convertibles before, but I'm sure that'll be a fun experience either way, because the Miata is just even better than most convertibles, because it's just so small and just so open. It's just so immersive, and such a good car. And let me see. Danny says they made the Pathfinder hybrid only in 2014. Production of them stopped in January of 2015. It was basically a 1 year only thing. Production stopped due to low sales compared to the V6. Wow, that's surprising. Yeah, I never knew that. Interesting. Thanks for the info, Danny. Darnell says newer minis are very iPhone, a lot of focus on design instead of the driving experience. Yeah, I mean, I have never done the regular Cooper of the last generation. I did the Clubman, actually the Clubman SD, which is the sporty diesel variant in the UK, which was a really fun video. Like, nobody watched that one, but that was right-hand drive mini on all the little B roads in the UK. And that was a real fun one to do. It was stressful to actually film the video itself, but just having a mini Diesel clubbing, phenomenal. I think I was getting over like 50 mpg in that thing over the course of the week. But just having that in the UK was so great when we were there in 2018. But other than that, yeah, I mean, but I actually really liked the last generation. Again, from just my limited experience with it there, and I loved my R56. If it had not fallen apart on me, it would have been great. I just I should have probably, in hindsight, I should have gone R53 or something like that instead, had the same or similar kind of fun with a little bit more reliability if I went for one of the last couple of years of the R53 there. But I still do love minis, even the new one. It was still fun, even though I mean, you can see me having a good time in the review. It's still a fun vehicle. It's something I think would be a little hard for me to live with personally. Let me see. I see Kraken has more info about the Pathfinder hybrid. He says, 2014 used a 2.5-liter supercharged inline four, really, and a 15 kilowatt motor, up to 25 city, 28 highway, 26 combined, 250 horsepower. Very interesting. See, and I wasn't doing like extensive weekly updates back then, but I was doing weekly updates in 2014. I still have no recollection of that. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm so glad that myself and maybe a few of you have also learned something new tonight. A new car we didn't know existed. Crazy. And thank you for the extra info, Kraken. Darnell says the S550 digital dash is going to age better than the S650 double Android cluster. I think so too. I thought that was really perfect execution, having it in the same enclosure as regular gauges, having that nice hooded dash still. That's an example of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I know, again, they're just following the trends. I can't blame them, I guess. But yeah, just I know it alienated me and a lot of other people. Not like, again, I was going to buy one because I can't afford it, but any consideration I ever had for the future, it's just gone out the window once I saw that interior. And Danny says the Pathfinder hybrid got 18% better MPG than the regular V6 Pathfinder. Interesting. Yeah, that's not bad. It's not as good as usually the improvement you get these days, but not too bad. And let me see. Vishal says, looks like Nissan dropped out of the top 10 global auto sellers. Interesting. I hadn't heard that. I wonder why. I mean, because maybe there's something globally going on, but here in the States, I feel like things shouldn't have gotten much worse. I think they should have gotten better. With Sentra, sales were improving. I know Kicks obviously is on fire. And maybe it's just Rogue dropping off since that's their number one, breadwinner. Maybe that's just hurting them a little bit. I don't know. Interesting. And Rishi says apparently the Golf R has been spotted testing with the RS3 motor. Interesting. Okay, well, that definitely sounds like it's got to be a Germany only limited run. That would be my bet. But that's very cool, and it shows that my buddy Humble Mechanic was a visionary, because he's got a Mark 7.5 with the RS3 motor in it already. So he's already living in the future there with his awesome build that he did. And I need to get down to North Carolina to review that, because he's offered it to me. I just haven't had the time to make the trip, but I need to get down there just to hang out with him, because he's also an awesome individual, but to also review his RS3 powered Golf R. And Decepticon says, my spots of the week were an insane lakeside car show, LaFerrari Aperta, 250 GT Nart Spider, Daytona SB3, and an emerald painted carbon Pagani Utopia. Holy crap. I'm not sure where that lakeside car show is, but it sounds like you live in a pretty nice area, or you drove to a nice area. Man, that is a stacked lineup. Must be like all the people that have moved on from Monterey and are just bouncing around at other places or something. That's crazy. That's awesome. The only time I've ever seen the LaFerrari or the Daytona were in Maranello. Outside of Maranello, I've never seen one. And man, the Pagani Utopia, that's got to be an awesome one to see. Emerald painted carbon. That sounds awesome. Very nice spots. Yeah, I think you win this week, hands down. Let me see. So Black Death says, if Hyundai comes out with the 2026 Palisade, do you think that's something you'd like to review one day? Well, it's already out. Unless maybe it's the 25. 26 is going to be the same thing either way. And as far as reviewing one. I'm hoping to get one as a press car towards the end of September or early October. So look out for a review here sometime this fall on the Palisade. That was one I was invited to the media drive. I wasn't convinced it was going to get the best views. Oftentimes Hyundais are a struggle for me to get views on, even though I love them and I think they're some of the best out there. It just, a lot of the people on this channel just don't respond to Hyundai reviews unless their Elantra ends pretty much. But I'm going to get around to it here, this fall for sure. Cause it's, I mean, a huge seller and definitely, one worth filming. It wasn't worth the trip for me. Cause again, just anytime I go on a plane for these, media drives, it's just 3 days lost. And I'm just way too busy to burn 3 days on something that's a gamble views wise. So that's why I didn't rush out to do that one. And Chadwick says he just subscribed to the new channel. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And stay tuned. Hopefully that video will be dropping here in the next couple of days. And now that we are talking about the new channel, for those of you who are in here, the 44 of you that are currently hanging out with me here, the plan for that channel is to be probably posting a video ideally once every 2 weeks. They're going to be long videos. The first one's going to be 1 hour and 6 minutes actually. And they are going to, just be something I do every 2 weeks. I'm going to bridge the gap with content by doing a bunch of shorts and little clips and snippets from the videos as short form vertical stuff, to space out until the next 2 week long upload, and then that will feed out into shorts and just keep on going with that. So that's the plan for those. And when I do them, I'm going to be going to a variety of yards in the greater area here, and so that's going to allow me to always hit a fresh yard, because it seems like it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for the yards to completely turn over. So just so that I'm not showing up and seeing stuff that I saw before, I'm going to not go to the Pittsburgh one for another month or month and a half. And then, once I know that there's all new stuff there, then hopefully go back to that one. And the length I was a little iffy on, but I did a lot of research on the junkyard walk videos that are already out there and the channels that do really good views on them. There's some channels that get 100,000 views and upload, which, I'm not expecting that, but even if I can get a fraction of that, I'll be very happy. And most of them are 1 hour, some are even longer. And we're starting to see more and more of this trend of YouTube being consumed as this long kind of viewing experience where people are tired of hopping around from, one video to the next every 5 or 10 minutes. A lot of people just want to watch it and binge it like a TV show, then put something on for a half an hour or an hour and enjoy it enough to stick with it and watch it all the way through and watch the next one and have it be an episodic thing. And that's kind of how I'm going to try and build these. So that's the plan for those, but so don't expect a new junkyard walk every few days or something. I know on this channel I have a lot of stuff uploading all the time. That's going to be more sporadic. It might not even be every 2 weeks, but it's going to be something that when they do drop, they're going to be videos you'll probably either have to do a long viewing session or come back and catch little bits and pieces whenever you have time. But there's a lot of good stuff in there. So I mean, obviously it's ideal for everyone to watch every video all the way through, because that's the best green light for the algorithm to push it to more people. But in these especially, I'm sorting them kind of logically. So instead of hopping around and saying, oh, there's this cool one and this cool one, or front loading all the cool stuff, I'm going by section. So first we're starting with trucks and SUVs and vans, then we're going to imports, and then we're going to the Mopar stuff, and then the GM stuff, and then the Ford stuff. And I'll have timestamps for those sections of the yard, but I'm literally going to do it totally fresh. Haven't seen anything yet. I'm walking through it and you're experiencing the entire yard with me over that hour. And I do edit out some stuff, because if I didn't edit at all, it'd be even longer. But cutting out all the boring stuff and highlighting just the main stuff. But there was truly an hour's worth of interesting stuff, in my opinion. Maybe it'll bore some of you to tears, I don't know. But there's some real crazy mods that you see, some really interesting stuff, and honestly, some stuff, I'm not going to spoil the video, but there's multiple vehicles where I'm what is this doing in a junkyard? Really rare stuff, some really nice quality stuff that would kill at Radwood, that would cars. I'm why did this not get saved? It drives me crazy. And I'm going to try someone actually, I made the mistake of putting the video in a playlist today on the new channel. and it's still an unlisted video because I'm just waiting again for the approval from Pullpart. But someone was, I guess they clicked on the playlist and the video showed up in that playlist, even though it's not supposed to be public yet. And they were like, just try not to make these too depressing. But they enjoyed the video. The one person, there were a few people who were able to watch it before I fixed that. But that's going to be the challenge for me, because it's seeing all these awesome cars that are, weeks or days away from the crusher, knowing they're never going to see the light of day and see the road again, is a little bit of a bummer, so I'm going to try and, focus on the funny stuff and focus on, just the educational components of it and the, entertaining treasure hunting kind of component. But there is a little bit of me that's like, oh man, like I don't want to see this thing, be turned into a refrigerator. But it obviously, that's just, you can't save them all, and it's the inevitable fate of most cars. But I'm just a very sentimental person. I'm like, oh, this car had a family, and it had someone who bought it brand new and showed it around to their family and their friends, and it was, every car has that story, unless you're talking about a fleet thing or something. But like, that's the component of it that I'm gonna have to make sure I don't go to my natural inclination of like going dark with it and just try and keep it light. So that'll be my only challenge. But I'm really excited for it. I think it'll be again, just a different kind of thing. And also a good thing to future-proof if the car market just continues to tank and gets even worse. As we go into this end of this year and next year, it'll be a nice fallback to do something that cars are still going to be junk. They're still going to be interesting cars, no matter what the chaos is in the world. So it's another component. I'm looking forward to maybe having a little bit of extra stability there, just building a fan base of people that just enjoy that kind of stuff, and that being something that's a constant, that's not changing or going away, or becoming less appealing, hopefully. But let me see. So Vishal says, drove by my local Hyundai dealer and happened to see a couple new Palisades sitting out front. Doesn't look as big in person as it does in pictures and video. The front end is different. Yeah. To me, it still looked pretty big, but I haven't seen it out in the sun yet. I've only seen it at the New York Auto Show, under the lights and all that. So, but I mean, yeah, it did get a little bit bigger, but it is still pretty close to the size of the old one, so it's not going to be drastically, different. I think for me, it's more so the front end doesn't look quite as big as it might look in pictures, but the back end and like the side profiles, the part that seems really like big and chunky in a good way, that seems like the biggest size gain over the old one, in my opinion. But I'm glad you saw one out and about there. That's cool. And I think they're starting to show up at dealers right now, pretty much. I think there's actually already some at dealers, because I think Joe Rady already filmed a few different variants. But let me see. Kraken says, the Curious Info Nerd says you're welcome. Well, I'm glad that we share that nerdy tendency. Let me see. Omar says, let's bring back the Evo. How can we make it happen? You can't. I mean, you could bring the name back, but you're not going to like how they do that. The idea of them slapping on an SUV is probably the most likely way we'll see a new Evo. But would it be a new Evo, really? Not in my opinion, I think, if Mitsubishi was doing better and we were in a world where, I guess the rest of the world can see this, but if we were in a world where, America and Japan were a little more in support of EVs, I think, because the initial idea that it sounds like Subaru's planning on doing with the STI is to, make it an EV in 2028. If that were actually supported and we're a hot seller, which it probably won't be, but if that were actually supported and, people were excited about that, then I could see Mitsubishi throwing their hat in the ring there and, trying to compete with a new gen thing that's electric, because it's a little bit easier from an investment standpoint versus a unique high horsepower turbo 4-cylinder. That's a lot of extra R&D and stuff, versus being able to pop in 2 electric motors. Boom, you got 500 horsepower immediately. And, it's nice and easy. I think that would be an easier path to Evo, but I shouldn't say no enthusiast. Most enthusiasts, at least the way that I'm constantly being bombarded with all the hate about EVs, most enthusiasts wouldn't support that. So I think that's why it's a very challenging thing. And it just, there is no way, especially that Mitsubishi, if Subaru can't even bother to do it, there's no way Mitsubishi can bother to engineer a new motor, to be world-class competitive like the Evos of the past. I think, the best advice, and like I say for many of these types of things, if you want an Evo, go buy an old one if you don't have one yet, and just enjoy that, because it's never going to be better than the old one. Unless you want straight line power and you're okay with electric, but other than that, it's never going to be as pure. It's never going to be the same. That ship has sailed, and I don't think it's ever coming back. If it does, it's going to be heavier. It's going to have autonomous braking. It's going to be, more airbags. So even if we were in some ideal world where, that was something that was financially feasible and people would actually buy it in decent numbers, it's still just, it's never going to be the same. So buy an old one, enjoy it to death. Buy a backup one, mothball that, and have that for once the first one's worn out. Seriously, like, if that's your thing, there's a bunch of people that actually are thinking about doing this kind of same thing of, buying one for now, keeping one for later, and just kind of enjoying that stuff, as long as they feel like enjoying it for. But that's a lot of these cars. When people say they want to see it brought back, really your best bet's just to buy the old one, honestly, if you don't already have it. If you do, you can always modernize it yourself, put in a head unit, put in more power, whatever you want to do. But it's never going to be better than the old one. And Vishal says, in news of TLX going away, I saw an older couple with a new white TLX last week, temp tag and everything. Clearly, there's some market still for sedans. Oh, absolutely. All you got to do is look at, what Camry is selling, 300,000 units, something like that, or 250 last year. Same deal. Accord, I think, is over 200,000 units. Even Altima, I think, is at like 150,000 units a year. K5, I think, was around 75 or 80. Sonata's, up around there too now, I think. Just talking about those ones right there, rough estimate, it's probably close to 750,000 cars or something like that a year. I think we've found the bottom of interest for sedans, and I think it's only going to improve, or at least hold strong. I think we've found the holdouts who say, I want a sedan. I'm not settling for an SUV. I'm sticking with a sedan. And there's a lot of people that are passionate about that. Acura might not see the value in keeping the TLX around. Others, might not either, but, we have others that are investing in that. We have a new Lexus ES coming. We have all these other, new sedans that are still fantastic. And, so there is absolutely a market for sedans. And, it is what it is. I think, it's such a shock about TLX going away, and I can't rationalize it aside from just chalking it up to another nonsensical Honda decision, in my opinion, that just, doesn't seem like it makes any sense at all, especially because they just did a refresh last year. At least get your money's worth out of the refresh and keep it going for another year or two. I think they just needed the production capacity, but then why did they do the refresh? It just seems like poor planning. Like, if they knew they were going to do the electric stuff and they needed the TLX production line, then they should have just let it die on the vine and not spent the money to do the tweaks for 2024. Yeah, 2024. I don't know. It's bizarre. The series of events that led to TLX abruptly getting killed off there. And Danny says, about me with the first high school football game. It's my last high school game. I'm performing in the marching band for the last time at the first football game of the season. Nice. Yeah. I figured, since you mentioned the game, remembering you were in the band, that it's probably performing. So I'm sure that's going to be special, and I hope you savor it and enjoy the first game there. And let me see. Yeah, and Kraken says, he wins the spot of the week for the rest of the week and the rest of the year and next. Probably, yeah. And Caleb says his spot was an old right-hand drive Toyota Century pulled out in front of me today. Wow, well, that's unfortunate and seems very unlike a Century driver. You'd think something that rare would be, like, very carefully driven. But wow, Century, what a spot. I'm not sure where you live, but That's very cool that you saw that. Certainly softens the blow of getting cut off by somebody. And Kraken says, I should mention I checked out the new Palisade and the Ioniq 9. I was shocked how tiny the third row was in the 9, but I assume it's because the second row seats slide back further. Yeah, I think that's probably the main component. I don't recall the size difference between that and Palisade, but I mean, the new Palisade is definitely, yeah, a bigger third row. And yeah, it's kind of surprising because they made the Ioniq 9 longer than the EV9. You would think that they would have, focus a lot on the third row. And yeah, I mean, it's still, I'd say, mostly fine for most people. But if you want the biggest third row in an EV, a Volkswagen ID Buzz is definitely going to be the way to go still. And I see OCF says that Hyundai needs to make an all-wheel drive Elantra N. That'd be fun. Yeah, honestly, I'd even just take an all-wheel drive Sonata N line. And I feel like they could do that. It's just they'd have to pull parts from Genesis, I guess. Maybe they don't want to do that, or Genesis won't let them. I don't know. Because I don't think, or you know what? Never mind. You could do that because Santa Fe has that. Santa Fe's got the 2.5 turbo with all-wheel drive and the dual clutch. Yeah, you could definitely. I mean, I don't know if it would fit in Elantra, but it would definitely fit in Sonata because all-wheel drive fits in K5, so there's no reason why they couldn't. Unless there's some packaging component with a bigger motor in that all-wheel drive system. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I wish they would too. Elantra N, it would be a prime way to compete with WRX, but I worry if they had all-wheel drive that Elantra N is going to also be 40 grand just like WRX. And then, I mean, I don't know. It would be nice to have as an option, I guess, but I still hope they keep a front-wheel drive at least as an option, because I think that's part of the fun of Elantra N is the wheel spin and just the way that car is set up to be, just a real, it's like Type R and stuff. It's a very much front-wheel drive experience, and that's part of the fun of it. And Mr. 705 says, I just got here. What's the new channel's name? It's called Relics of the Rust Belt. So I did a social post here on the channel yesterday. And so you can go, check it out. It's live. There's no video yet. Waiting on approval for that, but hopefully that'll be posted up here in the next few days. And going to be all about junkyard walks. And I see Brian says he just subscribed to the new channel as well. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I see we're over the hour mark here. So we'll do the last few questions here and then head on out. So I see Kraken says the new Palisade's nice, but it doesn't break the ground like the first gen originally did. Yeah, that's always the problem, right? With any sequel is, following up the first is always really hard. But I think it's going to be a nice evolution. And you got to keep in mind, this is for primarily current Palisade owners, and for them, if you think about first model year or two of Palisade, you didn't have wireless CarPlay, you didn't have as much plushness, and just the fresher look and all that. I think it's gonna be a good upgrade, and I think that's all they need. If they can just retain the people who bought the first Palisade and maybe conquest a little bit, they'll be just fine with that, because they're selling 100,000 of them a year. So I think they'll be pretty happy if they can just retain that. Danny, thanks also for letting Mr. 705 know about the channel there. And Omar says, what if Hyundai would team up with old Mitsubishi engineers and designers and create a modern Evo? That just wouldn't be an Evo. I think you could kind of argue, in a way that get your shot glasses ready. The GR Corolla is that, highly boosted, small little engine, scrappy, bare bones car. Obviously, it's a hatch, and Evo, at least here in America, wasn't hatch. But that's filled the gap of that and STI going away, of a 300 horsepower manual all-wheel drive bare bones car. That's it. So if you are after something modern, I'd say GR Corolla is what you should go with, in my opinion. And as far as, if Hyundai teamed up, or, if Hyundai pulled in, old Mitsubishi engineers, that would be great. I think Hyundai has great engineers of their own. That's why they have all the magical stuff that they have already. So it's just a matter of, do they want to do an actual rally car? Because I think that's also the actual rallying component is very important, and I think that's the one thing that Subarus, they still kind of do, but kind of don't. I think they kind of lost sight of that component a little bit. I mean, they still do rally, but not in the World Rally Championship anymore, or unless they might have come back recently. But last I heard, I didn't think they were still doing that. They do the local stuff here in the States. But regardless, I think that real rallying pedigree is important. And I think that's also what makes GR Corolla so good and so convincing, is that it is, still GR Yaris and all that based on a rally car. And that's the secret sauce. I think that's very important from a marketing standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, and all that. And so I think that's, again, I would just say get a GR Corolla. But hey everyone, get your drinks there, and apologies, I had to bring it in, of course, before the end of the live here. And Michelle, you're very kind, saying an hour and 6 minutes for the junkyard walk. Can't wait. It's very nice of you. Yeah, like I said, there's going to be timestamps, so that'll make it a little more, bite-sized, hopefully for some of you that maybe are just not interested in certain, brands of cars you can skip through. But yeah, I'm hoping it does okay. We'll see. And let me see. So I see Philip says it's going to be cool. I'm glad you're excited for it, Philip. And also Kraken says, Matt, I'm too excited for this. Stop spoiling me. I'm glad you're excited too, Kraken. And Darnell says, when I used to go to junkyards, I'd always grab/buy the oddball emblems. Yeah, I may start doing little collections. And there's also some stuff that there were some interesting things. Again, I'm not going to try and tease everything, but there's some interesting things that I saw at the junkyard that I was like, I need to stop in future visits and look up on eBay what some of the stuff's going for, because I see owner's manuals or other things that are easy to pull. But even in one of the cars, there was a 2018 Elantra, and the head unit was still in there. And I'm like, surely that head unit has got to be worth some decent money. It's probably not super easy to get out, but I'm like, man, even if I could just bring a couple of screwdrivers and a few pry tools, and if that would be enough to get some of this stuff out, it might be a nice little side business as well, possibly. Because I know some people, I was at the yard, there's a bunch of people there, just that's what they do, is they're just, they got their wheelbarrow and they're pulling a bunch of parts from a bunch of different cars, and they know what to look for, and they're very smart and resourceful at figuring out, okay, this little part off of this thing is what I need because that's the big dollar item on eBay or whatever. So that's a whole other thing to have to learn, but there's definitely some potential there to make some money with some gold you got in those cars. And see, Michelle's more excited. I'm glad. And Kraken says, I need to start going to junkyards and tear things apart. I plan to make my future home car themed with various decorations made of old parts. Oh, yeah, obviously junkyard is the best place for that. They also do have discount days. I think they have wheelbarrow days where it's you fill it up as much as you can, and it's a flat fee versus paying per item and things. So there's maybe, especially if you're trying to deck out your house with a whole bunch of stuff, wait for one of those discount days when you can do a big haul, just to save yourself some money. But obviously this stuff's not that expensive anyway, but that's going to be the most cost-effective way to do it. And Theodore says, just like the junkyard cars, that the car was someone's dream car and was happy when they got it, and then look what happened. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's how I feel. And let me see. Darnell says there are some excellent imported cars from Japan that are legal to register now with low miles and tasteful mods. Absolutely. There's a bunch. And yeah, I think that's a really good workaround for people who are burned out by high car prices. If you're open to something older, but you want something really reliable, getting a little smaller Japanese thing we couldn't get in the States until you can import it. There's so many K cars you can get for $5,000 with low miles that probably are not the safest things. But if you want something that gets super good fuel economy and is going to run forever, as long as you can find parts, that's the only other tricky component. But some of these K cars are so dirt cheap for a really cool, fun little car. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat here right at the end. He says, hey, Matt, you should place a couple historic wheels rims behind you on the top shelf. Yeah, that'd be a fun idea because I do have a lot of empty space up there. You're right. I do have the 68 Mustang hubcap clock that Beth got me many years ago that's hanging up over here. You can't see. So maybe I could relocate that possibly. But yeah, that could be a fun idea. If I'm at the junkyard and I see some cool hubcaps, maybe grab some of those and yeah, finish off the top of that shelf would be fun. Good idea. Thanks for suggesting that, Jordan. Um, and thank you again for the super chat. He says the shelf could hold at least 3 rims. Probably. I just would have to check to make sure that it's enough space because it might not be enough. You can see I got like the Jameson bottle there. That's about the height limit. So I got to find something that's smaller than a Jameson bottle. Can fit up there. Maybe at an angle I can fit something a little bit bigger, but that's gonna. But if it's vintage, yeah, maybe it'll be small enough. We'll have to see. But appreciate the idea. That's fun. Seafook says everyone loves a good rim on top. Yep. And let me see here. Last few questions. Where were we? Omar says you're gonna have to buy an old Evo. That's my next car. Yeah, I think it'll be great. I love Evos. The Evo 10, super great car, and I think they still have like the double DIN head units for the most part. You can swap in, CarPlay pretty easily and all that. Really, just yeah, such a fantastic car still. And Raphael says no real hate for EVs, but my goodness, spend some R&D money and give me a good sound. Yeah, it just comes down to just the struggle that a lot of these car companies are going through financially of this transition, and everything is very resource intensive. And so if we were in better times and the car market was booming and we had better economic situations and we had a better world to facilitate those things, then we could see that. But I think especially just again with now the split focus of if we had all those good sounds of the past because that's all everyone did. It was all focused on just that. All your engineers, all your R&D money, all that stuff was going towards gas engines already. And so pulling aside a few engineers and funneling a few extra dollars into making it extra cool, wasn't as big of an ask as it is now to say, okay, we need to have half of you on the EV side. We need to have half of you on the gas side. And those gas side people have to also be split between the hybrids and the plug-in hybrids. And they're spread too thin. And the market isn't supporting enough sales to justify, doing these big dollar expenses for these, very bespoke powertrains. And this is why you're seeing, unfortunately, that is all going up market. If you want, the crazy awesome engines, you got to go higher end. You want to have, the best manuals, you got to go higher end. You want, whatever it is, any of the fine mechanical elements that we all appreciate and enjoy, you can't really get them in any of the cheaper stuff. And this is actually, I was just talking with Jared from Carbuzz here on Blue Sky earlier this evening. He's saying he didn't like the Elantra N manual, and he's just like, if they're not going to make a good manual, then just don't offer one at all. And I'm of the opinion that like we have to support the manuals, and even if it's not the best manual ever, I still think it's a fine manual, but it's not as good as a Honda or as good as a CT4V Blackwing or anything. But like it's still pretty good manual, and like if we want to support the little bit of enthusiast mechanical stuff that there is out there, like we got to actually buy these things new. But it's getting more and more rare. How many good sounding manual transmission fun cars are there even under 100 grand? I mean, it's probably we can count on 2 hands. I mean, there's not a lot. And so it's I think that's going to be the future, unfortunately, is you want all that cool stuff, well, you got to pay top dollar for it. I think the era of affordable gas stuff, if you're talking fun gas stuff, it's not going to be easy to do going forward. And I think you're kind of seeing the writing on the wall a little bit with Subaru. I don't have a crystal ball, but we're looking at how they're saying, the Trail Seeker is going to have a 4.4 seconds 0 to 60 or whatever. And they got this Uncharted thing, which also has 375 horsepower in this little, tiny crossover. Like, I think that's them saying, hey, you guys wanted a Crosstrek XT? Well, we can't do that for whatever reason, even though that motor is already done, but we can't do that. We're going to, do this, this electric thing instead. And I think that that's so much easier and cheaper, but it still brings the performance. Whether enthusiasts ever support that, I don't know. But I think car companies like have it in their mind, in my opinion, some of them, that's the way forward is, okay, we don't have to lose all the performance and all the fun, and we can do it really cheaply and easily because we just throw in these motors that are very easy and cheap and give us a bunch of power. And it's a whole lot easier to make that power with those EV motors versus some crazy awesome wound up gas engine. And there's no R&D money to really spend if it's already an electric motor that's on the parts shelf. You can just pop it in, put it around a cool body style and build it like a Lego car. Then it's that's, I think, the sad reality of what it's going to be like going forward. I think it'll still be fun in a different way, but it just there's no going back unless the entire world goes to a singular focus of only non-electrified gas stuff, which is not going to happen. Maybe in America, people would like to try to steer it in that direction. I don't think even that'll be successful. But the rest of the world has clearly moved on. Like we're going electrified in the rest of the world, and it's just a matter of time. So that's why I'm savoring stuff like the Elantra while it lasts. I'm savoring any of these gas powered things, but it's really like it's not going to be available on the new market much longer. Again, we'll have more of a leeway here in America because of the regulations for the next few years, but it's to me still going in the same direction. That's not going to change. But it'd be nice to see maybe someday car companies will be able to afford to do everything top notch, but it seems kind of unrealistic to me, sadly. And Steven says, is there a car in the past you literally dropped everything and you're scheduled to review? If not in the past, what about now? That's a great question. I think the V8 Miata was kind of one of those cars because I really, still don't meet up with people hardly ever to review their vehicles. But that one was one that I was pretty confident, because like the guy pitched it to me who, Sarasota Super Sport Performance, I think is what their name is. They said, look, like you're going to be the first person outside of the shop to drive this thing on camera. And no one had done a V8 ND Miata. There's been other V8 Miatas in the past, and for NC, NB, NA, but no one had done an ND. And no one had even done a video on an ND V8 or anything like that, but no one had even done any V8 Miata whatsoever in like years. I think the last one before mine was like 2021, maybe for like an NA or NB or something. And it was just like, so it was an insane vacuum that's extremely rare in YouTube automotive world. And then an insane, opportunity to be the first. So I had the exclusive. I had a huge vacuum, and then it's also a vehicle that I knew would play very well with my audience, and that was why that was like the 1 in a million kind of thing. And I mean that video literally, I think it's over 800,000 views now. I mean that one I dropped everything, and I was like, this is gonna be an inconvenience, and it's gonna be a little uncomfortable, because it's a crazy car that's probably still got some bugs that need to be worked out and stuff. But clearly, that one did pay off. So anything. If I can ever identify something like that, that's really it. I mean, there have been a few instances in the past where I've dropped something, especially if it's a rare car. If it's a car that I know is really rare and is probably going to sell really quick. I think the Impala SS that I reviewed at Harrison Auto Sales 2 years ago, that's another one. That video I think is now like 275,000 views or something. That was another one where it's like, I think this is going to do very well. Hardly anyone's reviewed this. And I know if I don't jump on this now, it's going to vanish. So there's been a few like that, and that's what I'm on the lookout for. I may have found another one that I'm hoping to actually review this week and kind of, again, making it a priority. I don't know if it's going to do anything like the others have in the past. It may get close to what Impala did. We'll see. But, that's kind of the lookout. I'm really happy with my partnership with Number One Cochrane now because they have a huge amount of used cars and they churn through them really fast. So there's always, interesting, fresh stuff. And so I think that's going to be hopefully providing more of those hits than what I had in the past when I was basically just, waiting to see what was offered to me nearby or, debating whether I go on a long road trip to meet up with somebody or just waiting to see what, Harrison Auto Sales got in. But typically it's got to be one of those things where there's got to be no competition out there, because I can't compete on my channel anymore. It doesn't work. You see that with every press launch I go on. I always am like one of the worst on views compared to all the, other big guys out there that get tons of views on that stuff. So, I mean, it's really just no competition, something rare but cool, and actually, has decent search volume still on YouTube. Those are the kinds of things that I'll drop everything. And there's a variety of cars, it's just a matter of, I think for me, the most likely chance of successes are affordable cars like that. If I had the opportunity to review a Pagani tomorrow, that would probably do decently well on views, but like, honestly, as crazy as it is to say, that probably isn't something I'd drop everything for, at least from a channel perspective. I probably would for myself, just because I'd be selfishly wanting to drive it. But, it's more so like, again, that Impala SS, for example, the sweet spot of something affordable. And even the Miata, even though that kit was expensive, the idea of, a pretty common V8 in a very common, cheap sports car gave it that, idea and air of approachability and relatability. I think that's very important as well for hits. Because if you're just, hey, look at me, I'm driving around a supercar, and tomorrow I'm in another supercar, like, nobody cares. I think everyone's so burned out on that content. Maybe you aren't, but I know most people, it sounds like, that I've talked to, just they don't care about someone buying another supercar. It's so tired, and it's been played out a million times over, But anyway, long answer there. I know we're going to be way over time, but let me see here. I'm going to try and keep it concise. The last few. Vishal says, thoughts on Mercedes being in talks with BMW to use their B48 engine. Seems like it's due to Mercedes EV push not panning out the way they hoped. I hadn't heard that. That's very interesting to hear. I don't know if BMW would go with that, because I mean, the B48 is so good. I mean, Mercedes has the turbo 4-cylinder, so I don't know why they would need to buy someone else's 4-cylinder. I mean, it's a better 4-cylinder with the B48, but I mean, maybe there's more context to that story that I'm not getting, but that sounds unlikely to me, because there's no reason they can just keep going with the regular motor that's in all the other, 4-cylinder Mercedes stuff, and just use that. Even if the EV thing doesn't pan out, you can keep those 4-cylinders going. They're competitive. They're fine. So I don't know. That doesn't seem likely to me, but who knows? Ryan says, I saw Kia Amati yesterday. A reminder of how much Kia has progressed over the years. Yeah, they're fun to see. I actually saw one at the junkyard the other day. Didn't actually film it because it just was unremarkable in my opinion, but they are, it's interesting to see them out on the road for sure. I'd see them last time I was at a junkyard too. I saw a couple of Matis, but I thought it was a fun idea, them trying to copy Jag pretty much, and a little discount Jag in a way. It was a fun idea. Omar says, it's really a shame about the TLX. If I was buying a performance-oriented import with an auto, I'd just get that TLX. Yeah, TLX is great. And Hyper Shadow says, driving back from work, but I made it barely. Thanks so much, Hyper Shadow, for the super chat, and hope work was okay for you. Thanks for the comment there at the beginning. And let me see here. Vishal says, Honda is holding Acura back in many ways, even though Acura came before Lexus. They're the ones that ran away with success, while Acura didn't have the same path. Honda hasn't invested enough into Acura. I would agree with that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there that's being untapped. And Kraken says Hyundai did say they kept the Kona and front-wheel drive due to cost and complexity, so the same can be said for Elantra and Veloster. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mr. 705, thanks for subscribing to the new channel as well. I appreciate it. And Kraken says, I remember the Palisade being so hot Hyundai could not keep up 3 years in. Not that the new one is bad. I would have expected a little more, though, truthfully. Yeah, I think we'll see how Palisade does. I think it should be a pretty hot seller, but it's also different market conditions. I mean, last Palisade launched in, 2018? It was a good economy back then. It was, good interest rates, car sales were booming. It's just a better kind of condition. It really all has come down to market conditions. I mean, another thing I kind of mentioned, because I saw a Kia Borrego in the junkyard, and I said in that, I was like, that was a prime example of market conditions can kill a good idea. The Borrego was the Telluride 10 years before Telluride happened. And if that hadn't launched in the middle of the recession, that would have been Telluride. And, we would have seen the new Telluride here being Borrego, I think. But they, just got the timing a little bit wrong. And that's, I think, the only reason why that didn't do well. Otherwise, it would have done well. And I think, we might see, this Palisade start off a little bit slower. And it might just be slow sales because everything's going to be slow sales for the next few years here. It's just going to be tough. And so, I just think that's just more just the market than it is the Palisade itself. I see everyone drinking because of the GR Corolla mention. And Darnell says a lot of random door trim and shift knobs and steering wheels in good condition sell on eBay for decent money. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Shift knobs would be an easy thing to just kind of unscrew and throw in my pocket if I wanted to, buy stuff like that and flip that. That wouldn't be too bad. Steering wheels will be a little more challenging there, but that's a good idea. And it's a fun little hobby too. If you have free time and you want to make some extra side money instead of doing other things on the side, flipping car parts is a fun way to kind of explore and, make a little bit of money too. Yeah, I see Darnell says stuff that wears with neglect quickly. That's smart. Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, thanks for the tip on that, Darnell. Let me see. 2-track jacks is an OG mini wheel would fit up there on the shelf, right? And anyway, Jordan, I'm so glad you love the lives here. And Mr. 705 to round us out here says, I'm over the supercar content, but we'll watch every Porsche video. That's understandable. Porsche's doing some real magic, and I love how they're opening up options and, kind of giving a lot of the good stuff, that had been locked out for a while. I'm eagerly awaiting a new Speedster because to me, I love convertibles and, the old 911, Speedster was just seemed like it was pure magic. And I mean, the GT3 sound with no roof with the new GT3 would be amazing. So I'm hoping they do that. I think it's probably going to be an easy money printer, so I'm sure they'll do it eventually. But that's the next Porsche I'm looking forward to. But yeah, so many awesome things they've done recently. But anyway, well, thanks so much, everyone. Almost an hour and a half we made it here. So thanks so much for tuning in here. Hope you guys enjoyed the live. And stay tuned for, again, hopefully, I can't say exactly when, but hopefully that junkyard video will be coming out here in the next few days. Be sure to make sure you're subscribed to this channel as well, but also to that one, so you'll know when that video goes live. But I'll be also posting it on here as well to let you guys know. It'll be a community post. That was the word I was looking for, community. It'll be a community post here on YouTube, on my channel here, the main one, so that you'll know, even if you don't want to subscribe to the new one. Stay tuned for GV70 review tomorrow. And some more good stuff here coming after that. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week. I hope it's a safe, healthy, and happy one for all of us here. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.